Hello and welcome to Lights of the Round Table. My goodness, did we not start before with an amazing episode over here? We were hoping to have Nino on with us because we are feeling the narrative. It's information, disinformation warfare going on, and we're feeling it in various chambers. So I'm really, really happy to have Jason Q with us today. Emily, the founder of an amazing humanitarian project called Quantum Stellar Initiatives, who is educating, disseminating, and informing us of this great blockchain that's coming along our way. Because, folks, people are not realizing the biggest transfer of wealth is happening right now, and it has been happening, and is the story that nobody's really covering or talking about. So I really appreciate you coming, Emily. And of course, her right-hand man, in a sense, it's Nick Ragone, who had his debut with Charlie Ward as well. He has 35 years professional in Wall Street. And of course, no shenanigans go unnoticed to him because he has been also a whistleblower. So I think with Jason's Q's intel and with Emily's amazing Q intel and Nicholas, we are going to have a stellar episode for all of you. And I'm so sorry that Nino did not join us. So, Emily, you take the floor, please.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Susanna. I know, you and I have been messaging a lot in the background, but this is actually our first call together. So what a way to actually kind of kick this off.
Amazing.
So what I want to do to start this entire, let's call it discussion, if you will, is really kind of getting down to the crux of what is QFS and what is Stellar, because I think there's, like you said earlier in your introduction, there are a lot of disinformation narratives out there. And so for somebody who's looking at this from the first time with no background information, it can seem incredibly daunting. And so, thank you, Jason, for being available for this call, because I know he and I have been on so many calls together, but we never actually talk about the beginnings. We kind of talk about like, how does this fit into the bigger Q plan? And Jason just, jumps right in, but he hasn't really started from scratch. And so this is, a great way to just introduce not only to Jason, but basically to the whole world, exactly what's going on behind the scenes with QFS and more specifically with Stellar. And Nick is absolutely my right-hand man. Actually, our nickname is I'm PQ, Patriot Cakes, and he's PQ Plus. So I cannot have a better partner to be sharing this information with. Okay, so let's get started. Baked into this presentation is actually two separate presentations. So kind of bear that in mind, and I'll switch gears halfway through. So I want to start with the first one. Is there a quantum financial system? And if so, what is it? What does it look like? So I think most people who have been following the Q narrative do know about the National Quantum Initiative. It was actually one of Trump's EOs back in 2019. And so the big takeaway from this is really to understand that the National Quantum Initiative is actually through the Department of Energy, right? And so who is actually in charge of it is the Secretary of Energy, guys. That's Q clearance, and there are 23 members. You cannot get more obvious that this is the Q plan right now, okay? And so if we go into like, well, what is the Q behind the FS? Because everybody knows the financial system, but they think about the cabal financial system. So we're literally shifting from the CFS into the QFS. So in order to actually fully understand quantum, let's talk, for a quick second about quantum computing first. Quantum computing is incredibly fast. We're talking trillions of transactions per second. So it's this computer that's way faster than supercomputers. In fact, it's 158 million times faster than a supercomputer. So we're talking about mega data, mega calculations, things that can't really be done with the normal system. And that's why all of these new computing calculations are able to actually be done for this system. One thing that I think is really fascinating to know is a quantum computer can actually teach itself how to correct its own errors. And in that sense, that's kind of where the concept of a smart contract comes into play. So smart contract, the simple definition is, I think everybody in the world understands a normal contract, right? Like, Suzanne, if you and I want to go into contract together, we have a piece of paper, we write our terms out, we sign it, we execute it, and that's what it is. And if you want to change it, then you have to sign all these addendums to it. But again, an addendum is a one-time fix. So but in smart contracts, what happens is you sign one thing, you program a billion, a trillion, a gajillion amount of permutations, and the computer actually does everything for you. And so it's like the most brilliant, most fascinating concept you can possibly think of, because if you think about the utility of a smart contract, it not only does away with the legal system, which is completely not lawful, but you can also start to minimize all the other kind of, for instance, like logistics or government, right? Like people in the Q plan, they know that the size of government is going to be shrinking by up to 90%. How is that possible? It's because of smart contracting, guys. And on top of that, again, part of GESARA, part of the Q plan, people have been learning about quantum voting. How do you actually have quantum voting? How can you make something that's immutable, attack resistant, unclonable, meaning that if Susanna votes once, she cannot vote 10 times. And if Susanna is dead, if she died 100 years ago, she can't be voting. That's only possible for quantum voting, guys.
No.
And so
they have a patent on that, right, Emily?
Yeah,
Yep. I have the patent number right here.
yeah.
So we are going to have voting integrity. Yay.
Yes.
Voting integrity, and it's anonymous, guys. That's one thing that people don't understand. There's a false narrative going around that blockchain is actually no privacy. Blockchain is actually more privacy than we have today without blockchain. It's insane, the disinformation narrative is going around.
That's right.
So the reason why I put IBM on here is there are so many major companies out there that are really taking the lead in quantum computing. But the number one right now, and it's been the number one for decades at this point, is actually IBM. So that's something to keep in mind. So before I kind of like dive into more information, I want to talk about this really quickly because there's somebody out there named Russell J. Gould. I think many people know who he is. And he made the claim that back in 2001, he actually created quantum banking. But what I find is the most interesting about all of this is, and I quote, I'm only going to read the red parts of it, but of course, if you're reading the screen, you can see the entire part. And this was on a show with Mel Carmine a couple days ago. But he said, the concept of quantum banking actually ends banking. So what I built does away with banking. And I don't actually have to monitor it because it self-judges itself through thinking on contract. Again, guys, that's smart contracting. So you can weed out this hold arm over the people saying that you got to follow our red cape. Again, guys, this means that you remove the cabal. They no longer have a control over the financial system. And because this actually completely destroys the existing system, right, the existing financial system, this is the new system with a completely clean slate that governs itself. I mean, you can't get any more clear than that.
And we prove that the central bank is gone.
Yeah, exactly. So this one, it's basically a Financial Times article, and it's all about CBDCs. But the reason why I pull up this one as opposed to the 10,000 other ones that Nick and I have talked about on all of our previous calls is because this is the former UK Treasury officer. So somebody who is seen as an authority in that realm, he himself is also talking about how the CBDCs destroy the banking system. I think that's, great authority on that. I'm not going to get into so many details of all the slides, but I just want to highlight a couple different points on the various slides so we kind of move on in the conversation. But if you look at CBDCs at the core of it, the pro of a CBDC, if you look at all the points in red, are actually what we want to have when we're destroying the existing banking system, right? We want lower fees. We want faster transactions. We want the smart contract that I mentioned earlier. We want to make sure there's no fraud in the system. And of course, we want more privacy and anonymity because we know with right now our current DARPA system, nobody has any privacy whatsoever, right? So every single point that's for a CBDC is actually for the QFS. Now let's take a look at the cons. What are the cons? Again, guys, you're ending bank lending practices. You're literally destroying the banking system with a CBDC. Liquidity tokens, right? Liquidity tokens to reduce volatility. So you're not going to have all the crazy market crashes. Nick has done so many calls on this, guys. He has done a masterpiece in exposing the banking system and how the banking system, the cabal, actually uses the lack of liquidity to create market collapses and has these collapse over collapse over collapse, and they make money off of you, us, we the people.
Every collapse that ever happened was engineered by the central bank. Every single one.
Yeah.
Boom bust. That's how they keep making more and more money.
By the CIA as well.
Yep.
And so if you take away their ability to make money, they literally go out of business. It's flawless.
The fiat currency, fiat system. I mean,
Yeah.
and also, I wanted to tell you because you know how I'm on Scribed, right? So I'm on Scribed, and I went under blockchain voting patent. Now they have 1,109 documents for that. Then I just put blockchain in. There are 49,663 documents. You could learn anything you want to know about blockchain if you want to do your due diligence. You know, if this isn't enough for you, because I mean, it's patented. They patented the blockchain voting. So if it's patented, that means it's already been used, tried, and it's actually available to be used. Because
absolutely. And anybody who understands what happened in the 2020 election knows that all those watermark ballots that people are talking about is literally the quantum voting system. That's why it is immutable. That's why there's full transparency, because they know exactly what happened with all those votes.
They tracked wherever they went. They tracked locations. They tracked who put them in. Everything.
It keeps everybody out of your business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so one of the big things, and I want Nick to talk more about this in a second too, but one of the big things about this disinformation narrative is there are a lot of people out there in the very, very public limelight, and they're saying CBDCs are evil, right? They're from the WEF, the World Economic Forum. And guys, that is so old school narrative. I will actually prove in the next couple slides the WEF did not even program the CBDC. It was just a concept, a twinkling in their eye from probably decades ago that they actually never executed. But what's actually happening now, real time, that's on the blockchain, you can see it in the Stellar ecosystem, are these CBDCs. What are the CBDCs? If you look at the tokens, the first one is literally IBM WorldWire. This is the quantum computer that governs all quantum computers on Earth. This is the one that works with Space Force and NSA and the Global Military Alliance. So how can they possibly be WEF? No, they destroyed the WEF. And if you look at some of these other bank names down here, I mean, this is the development bank, right? These are part of the BRICS banks that we're talking about. These are the African and the agricultural banks of the world. That's what the CBDC is. You're literally giving rise to BRICS right now.
Yeah, exactly. Right? This is so exciting. I mean, and you're explaining it beautiful, because I tell you, when you go and see the CBDCs, everybody is a dooms and gloom state that the World Economic Forum is coming to get everything that you worked. We're going to be in a Nazi, living in a Nazi world, crazy. And it's just, no, guys.
That'd be quite a trick without a central bank.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
These next couple slides, Susanna and then Jason, make you just chuckle so hardcore. Okay. So the next couple slides are documents from the World Bank, the IMF. And I'm going to show some very interesting things from the WF as well. But so this one was actually, they started writing in 2018. They actually published it in 2019. And you got to remember that the National Quantum Initiative came out in 2018, right? But Trump came in 2017. So he already started enacting all this. And that's when they started writing the paper that is, all about CBDCs right now. So again, guys, I'm not going to read every single bullet point. I'm going to highlight some of the stuff in the red, and you can come back, look at the replay, and look at more details for yourself. But if you look at some of the stuff highlighted in red, again, guys, smart contracts, it's the ideal condition for altering the current economic infrastructure. And look at it. Blockchain can reduce the cost of goods by 66.6%. I cannot make this up, right? So that means the cabal inflated it by 66.6%.
I wonder why.
White hats are removing it, right? Like, hello, slap on the head. And then if you look at this, let's see if I'm going to highlight that. I can't highlight on my PDF, but it's R3, Ripple, and IBM Hyperledger. So anybody who has done any amount of research on the ISO 20022 compliant blockchains knows that these three are actually part of the ISO protocol. R3 is the company behind the XDC token. Many people have heard of that. It's called the Bridge token, or that's the nickname for it. Ripple, I think everybody in the whole world by now has heard of XRP, right? But most people are like, oh, well, Stellar's not mentioned in this article. How can it be possibly related? Guys, IBM Hyperledger, remember I said IBM is the #1 quantum computing company in the whole world. And they have a program called Hyperledger, which I'll get into on later slides as well. But they are the biggest, well, in my opinion, the biggest partnership with Stellar. That happened in 2017. So 1 year before this article or this document was written, IBM joined partnerships with Stellar. And that's why right now you're seeing IBM at the forefront, because they're telling you verbatim, that Stellar is working with the #1 quantum computer, and that's the reason why the World Bank and the IMF are recommending them. Okay, so the bullet points in down here in red basically just talk about how it's going to be governed by quantum computers. They can give access to people who need it, people who don't need it. That means the white hats who are in control are monitoring everything. If you are a black hat, if you are known for nefarious deeds, if you're a criminal who's caught doing anything outrageous because of all the regulation coming out, they can actually freeze you out of the system and they can claw back your assets. And that's how you can actually push over all the assets that are tied to the triple Trump executive orders and the USMCA Act. That's how they flush all that money and all those assets into the Stellar ecosystem, guys. It's beautiful and it's freaking flawless. And so, by the way, the World Bank asset is actually minted on the Stellar blockchain. Now, if we move over to the UN and the IMF, so these are two different documents. But so this was written, so the first one, the UN, was written in August of 2020, and the IMF one was written in November of 2020 again. So just as a reminder, this is after the National Quantum Initiative Act already came out. And so they're full-blown going like, full tilt into quantum right now. And it's saying CBDC could be the next milestone in the evolution of money. Yes, because they're trying to destroy the existing cabal banking infrastructure. And again, these articles mention R3, Ripple, and IBM Hyperledger. I made this note in here, by the way. So R3, I mentioned it's both Corda and Conclave. A lot of people know about Corda. That's a little bit more publicly known right now. All that really means is they're connecting the digital infrastructure with the physical infrastructure. So when you have, current physical money out there, there's a gateway into the system onto blockchain through R3, and you can actually collect your funds in blockchain. On top of that, you can also cross between on-chain and off-chain. That just means on blockchain and off blockchain. So an example of off blockchain would be like PayPal or Zelle or I don't know with Cash App, something like that, right? So it's literally every single payment structure, payment channel that you can have money flowing through is connected because of something called R3 Corda. Now, R3 Conclave is actually what's known as KYC AML. That is Know Your Customer Anti-Money Laundering. It means the governance agencies all over the world, right, attached to every country out there, they can now check and identify you. They can verify who you are through your digital ID into your 3D bank account with your government ID and make sure that all this money that's flowing can actually be seen. You are, even though you are pseudonymous on the blockchain, the people with governance can actually see who your identity is. So that way, if you are a black hat, if you've been trying to move money around through cash or through Bitcoin and Ethereum, it's no longer valid because all of your transactions will be seen on the blockchain. And it's so open, so transparent that anybody, anywhere in the world can actually look at your wallet and see where your money is flowing. They might not know it's you, but they can see and they can track the money system. And that's what's very important. And this goes with individuals as well as institutions. So now we can track even where countries are moving their money around. Okay. And so the other big thing to note about this is both the UN and the IMF wanted to give the CFTC. So this is the Commodities Future Trading Commission, which is, in America, we have the CFTC and we have the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission. Those are two governing bodies. Oh, most people had never heard of the CFTC because it took a very, very small role in the past. But literally the UN and the IMF said, no, we need to give the CFTC more power, much more power. And they need to be able to actually govern the regulation coming out in the future. And that's a very big thing to know because I'm going to come back to this topic at the end of this presentation, guys. So now here's the funny thing, right? So the WEF, everyone thinks that Klaus Schwab is still in control. No, this guy has been dead for a very long time. I mean, both Klaus Schwab and George Soros didn't even make the WEF form this year. How much more obvious can it be? Right? But if we look at all the other things. What?
It was Klaus Schwab and Henry Kissinger actually created the WEF.
Yeah. And if he didn't make his own form, what does that tell you? Right?
Yeah, Bill Gates didn't either. The three top guys didn't make their own form. I mean, come on.
But look at but look at what's highlighted in the pink boxes instead. XRP, Algo, which is another ISO 20022 compliant blockchain, Stellar, right? And then look at the picture in the middle. This is not a Photoshop picture, guys. This is literally from the consensus conference, June of last year. So June of 2022. These are my pictures that I took because I sat front row with a whole bunch of people from QSI in Brad Garling House. I literally cannot kid you. I have so many videos and obviously pictures of him giving us the tip of the spear comms, and he's pointing directly at us. So that just shows you that Brad Garling House and XRP, Ripple, and all of this ISO 20022 compliant blockchains are part of the white hat agenda.
He knows who you are. He knows who you are, Emily. Come on.
He does, because there are a bunch of other people on all the other really big blockchains who do know who I am as well, and we know some of them are following us. When I say us, I mean Quantum Solar Initiative and also Whiplash 347. Both of us, by the way, are only on Telegram. I know there are a lot of scammers out there pretending to be us on other platforms, but we're only on Telegram.
And doing a beautiful job. So go ahead.
So I want to dive into Hyperledger for a quick second, because once you understand this, you understand how massive this truly is and how mind-changing this really, really is, okay? So Hyperledger is being broken down into 3 phases. Right now we have the graduated projects. The ones I highlighted in red, right? Besu, or however you pronounce that, is tied to Ethereum. Then you have Fabric, which is how IBM is integrating itself into Stellar. Then you have Sawtooth, smart contracts for PBFT. Now, this is incredibly important to know, and Jason, this will make you chuckle. PBFT, down here in black, I have what is the percentage of the system that can function before everything crashes. And so PBFT is baked into the programming of Bitcoin and Ethereum. So in an ideal network, so ideal internet connection, they only work 46 to 50% of the time. But when you have zero internet, they go to zero. Guys, this is literally Project Odin. They are telling you right then and there. And so why I bring up Besu is because Besu and Sawtooth, the 2 bullet points highlighted in red, that's how you have both Project Odin and how you flush all Bitcoin and Ethereum money into Stellar.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I have way more information that I couldn't even squeeze onto this slideshow. I actually have confirmation on a D class of mine from, I think it was like January 10th or something. I decoded that if people have been studying blockchain and they've been studying Bitcoin, there's something called Mt. Gox, which I won't get into too much detail on, but Mt. Gox was the biggest exchange for Bitcoin in the entire world. And the guy that ran it before he sold it off is Jed McCaleb, who also started Ripple, started XRP, and he also started XLM Stellar, right? So this guy was working, this guy, was working with the NSA and the DHS to literally create a sting op for Bitcoin. So maybe I'll talk about that.
He only owned Mt. Gox. Emily, he only owned Mt. Gox for like 9 months. That's it.
Yeah, so
he started it 9 months and took off.
Yeah, he sold it to a guy named Carpel.
Wasn't even a year.
Right. And yeah, it's comical. Susanna, I think we might have to do another call on that one on another day. So, okay, certainly. Hyperledger phase 2. Guys, this is all about quantum security, right? So access across all the different quantum computing networks, cloud providers, how you integrate all the different blockchains. I won't go into all the other details because I think for an introduction call, that's a little bit too much detail, but maybe on a future call, we can go into more details on phase 2. But suffice it to say, this is literally the security. So in phase 1, we flush all the other assets into Stellar. Then in phase 2, you secure it through quantum security. Phase 3 is where it gets really, really fun. This is where you start looking at AIML, which stands for artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? So smart contracts, quantum automation, which I mentioned earlier. And that's how they can start using this for what they're building out as a quantum smart city in the future, which is the total opposite of those 15-minute smart cities that just want to control you. But again, guys, it's all about built-in governance, built-in permissions, supply chain metrics, right? So I mentioned earlier, you're going to reduce supply chain and logistics, like the inflated money, by 66.6%. You're going to bring it back to what it's supposed to be. And then from there, further reduce the cost, because once it's fully automated through a system, there is no middleman in between. So you can even remove all of those companies as well, right? So again, just as a reminder, Quilt is the payment across any payment network. And that's why they're working really hard with R3 Corda to put all of this together. So when people ask, is QFS coming? No, guys, QFS is literally already here. It was actually enacted in October of last year. And so what does all that mean? Every quantum bank, which to be qualified as a quantum bank right now, you have to have the equivalent of XRP and XLM in what Charlie and other people have been calling a mirror account. And this information actually came to us from one of the top people at Wells Fargo. So all those pink boxes that I've got highlighted in the screenshot they can see, that's coming from my Wells Fargo contact. He's one of the top people over there. So not only they have, the equivalent amount in XRP and XLM, but they also have to be contracted with Ripple, XRP, and they have to be contracted with Stellar and actually have a Stellar asset. Because again, guys, Nick mentioned this a couple slides ago, but when you have an asset on the blockchain, then the actual existing 3D physical structure with all their employees will literally go away in the future. Because if they're not making money, they cannot exist. So they're just being tokenized and being put on the blockchain in the name of all those different companies and central banks around the world. We also have, and we also have,
so you don't make all the banks disappear at once. You
Yeah.
gotta keep people's minds, otherwise their mind, they lose their minds.
Yep.
Yeah, it has to be
So
it has to be a transition, right? Is that what you're saying, Nick?
Right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Just turn into wealth management centers.
Yeah,
Right,
they're
right.
all going to go
Yeah.
away. There's no need for it.
They've already changed their names to wealth management centers. Wells Fargo Wealth Management, all of them are changing their names all of a sudden. What a coincidence.
They put one up here 5 minutes from my house. Like, I guess that's where we're going to go redeem. Because the thing, what people understand, and when you mentioned this, I had to laugh, Emily, because you mentioned there was a bridge token, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they call it a bridge token.
No.
Because why they got away?
Yes, I do know, but I want to hear your version.
The Federal Bridge Certification Authority Network. That's the internet that they created under Bill Clinton. Remember we were talking about that? Under Wilbur Ross. Yeah, Wilbur Ross. So all the public keys and all the root keys, they were Hillary Clinton and were selling them to people. So that's how they're stealing all this information from these banks, from these corporations, everything. They're stealing everything on the blockchain. You can't steal anything. You're done. I mean, you can't. And when they talk about white hats and black hats, they're just two hackers.
Obama gave away the internet to foreign entities. He gave control up and gave it to foreign entities.
Yeah, and then they created it because when you look up the whole bridge, because they call it the bridge, the FBCAN, and it's like, well, wait a second. When we started looking at this, it's like, so what they do is they have these hackers go in, the black hats, because when they talk about DEF CON and the drops, when you take DEF CON and you pull it apart to DEF and CON, there's your black hats. Look it up on Wikipedia. It's all the black hat hackers, and they're the ones that go in there and they'll go in all these systems and they will steal, screw everything up. But the white hats just go in there, look around, make sure everything's good, and then they just leave. So it's like two dueling hacking facets. But the black hats, you've got down in Texas, Beto O'Rourke is a part of the cult of the dead cow. He's a big time black hat hacker, and they're so dumb that they have these things in Vegas, these black hat conventions, and at DEF CON 25, they had a voting machine village, right? They actually hacked the voting machines, and that's when the Democrats actually won the House of Representatives, and then they ended up winning an award for it. And guess who was at this one? You had General Alexander from the NSA. You got everybody from the CIA, FBI, U.S. Postal Service. They're all in on it. All these governmental entities are all in these black hats, and they're all stealing our stuff. That's why they had to come out the blockchain just to say, you know what, you guys, we're done.
Yeah. So
defense contractors.
To piggyback off what Jason's saying, there are so many Q drops on this. I made this post back in June of last year. But if you look at the different bridge comms on Q drops, right? It's like, how do you repair a bridge without closing it? Find the bridge, think company, bridges connecting people. What is the purpose of a bridge? And Jason already hit the nail on the head a second ago, FB can. Well, guys, this is also literally the bridge tokens moving, illegal money, traffic money over into a clean, fresh new system with full governance and full transparency. So that's how you do it. Like you fix, I found this article, and says you fix a bridge through something called ABC. And do I have ABC written on here? I got it somewhere. Hold on. Accelerated bridge construction. That means when you have a bridge, right? Because a bridge connects two different endpoints. Then what you do is you build like little segments of it, you kind of put it side by side, and then you literally just do a swap. Guys, that's literally what we're doing with the financial system. It's ABC.
Hey, wait.
That's
So
what it is. Yeah.
remember those that dropped the A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's ABC.
Mm-hmm.
About 1, 2, 3, right? That adds up to 6.
Yep.
How many letters are there? 666. 66%. You just, it's like they told us a long time before. I mean, and that's not the only bridge. We found the bridge 1 and bridge 2.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna
And what
believe
is ABC also? ABC stands for asset-backed currency. So they were literally telling us in our face a long time ago. But so like for people who want to do more research into this, and maybe in a future call with you, Susanna, Stellar Starlight, Starbridge, and Spacewalk are literally the mechanisms of how they enact the bridging to connect all the dots in between. And one thing I just want to mention quickly, again, for people who are doing their research into Stellar right now, if you look at these three domains, swisscustody.org, indusx.tech, and induspayments.com, these three combined are literally what creates the framework for international ledger settlement. And that's why the old narrative of XRP being the institutional money is not actually true anymore. That's what we all thought years ago. When I now, made the confirmation that it's actually these three. So, and these three are on Stellar, which means Stellar is the global payment infrastructure for every single thing, institutional and retail.
And XRP might be institutional, but they're not exclusive. That's the difference. They might only have a small portion of the whole operation when all is said and done. We don't know.
Yeah,
So-
they are incredibly important, guys. I'm not trying to diminish XRP by any means, but like what Nick was saying, they only have two functions, guys. One is liquidity, but only for institutional liquidity, not for global payment in liquidity. And the other one is something called collateralization, which I think is also a little bit too much detail for this particular call. But that's actually one of the big reasons how you flush all the other money into the system. And that's the reason why they need to get out of people's hands back into white hat hands so they can actually control and move the money over.
And
so
you
I have
can't put everything in. You can't risk everything on one token to run everything. Like saying it's the center of the universe. You do that, and something goes wrong, then the whole system crashes. You can't have it operating independently by itself. You need these other pieces in order to make everything function. So if there's a problem in one area, the whole thing won't come crashing down. So to say that XRP is the center of the universe is a ridiculous statement, honestly. Not that it's not that it's not important, but I'm saying if you say like it's the be all and the end all, like the XRP line, that's ridiculous because nobody would risk a whole financial system on one particular token, regardless of how good it is. So, to say that is really not, they don't really understand the big picture.
I mean, they would have learned after the FTX deal. It's like, that's why there's all this information out there for us. Now I'm starting to learn is that we have to do our due diligence too. We just can't say, oh, I'm just going to dump all my money in here. You see what happened to Tom Brady and all these guys? They all lost it all because they put all in one basket. It's like, guys,
I could give you a million stories like that. Believe me, I've seen so much. How many I mean, I've seen.
That's why they say we have to use discernment. Without discernment, then we're just a bunch of monkeys running around. Right. Guys, this is more for the audience. And Jason, if you're curious to pop into Telegram, I know you're not on Telegram very much, but because so many people have these questions and it's very hard to find the research, what I've done is I put together something called QFS Proofs, which is module 1 of our 3-part self-guided training program. And everything that's in QFS Proofs channel is public information only. So there's no decoding, there's no military comms in there. It's stuff that anybody can go find, do research on, and then study more of on their own time. But when you walk yourself through all these different modules in QFS Proofs, you will then realize, holy crap, like this really is a white hat setup. There's no other possible way it can actually function. So that's why I dropped the link right here. Okay, so let's walk on to the next topic now, because I think that one will really get to the crux of why we're so gung-ho about Stellar. And I know we kind of mentioned some of the topics in earlier slides, but this next slide, I think, will be the most telling of them all. Because I've been saying for a long time, for a couple of years now, Stellar is the keystone of the QFS. Now, why is that? Because in the beginning, people only knew of Stellar as the new stock market, because we already have confirmation that the stock market, when it crashes, it comes into Stellar. But then it evolved from there. The next iteration was, Stellar is the global retail payments, and XRP is the global infrastructure payments. Nope, that was also wrong. The narrative shift again. So now we have all these different kinds of assets in Stellar, and who knows, like in the next couple of months or next couple of years, there might be even more categories that we're going to learn about. Because guys, everything right now is being built in front of our eyes. So we're seeing the birthing of a new financial system, and that's why the categories can change and they can add more types of tokens over time. So, the first one, again, QFS, quantum computer governance, all of that is only on Stellar. CBDCs, we mentioned how literally they destroy the cabal banking system. They're also only on Stellar. We've got stablecoins. What is a stablecoin? It means it's a one-to-one pegging between your digital currency and your physical currency. And we all know that in the future, all our physical assets or physical monetary assets will only be minted by the treasury departments of the world because it has to be a sovereign note. And because of something called Bretton Woods 3, these physical notes have to be backed by physical metals and commodities. And so when you have a stable coin and it's pegged to a digital currency, that means all the digital stable coins are also backed by these same physical precious metals and commodities all over the world. So what are commodities? Things like, diamonds or oil and corn, wheat, salt, coffee. I mean, pretty much anything that anybody understands to be a commodity is what's backing our stable coins right now. Right? Government bonds, every single, I mentioned that a second ago, every single commodity, smart contracts, infrastructure payment rails. So things like, SWIFT system, their deadline to come into Stellar is actually, to come into the ISO 20022 compliant blockchain is actually coming this month. It's March 20th, guys. So SWIFT is coming in. I think everybody understands SWIFT. SPF, SFMS, Fedwire, chips, chaps, everything is coming into Stellar. We've got the stock market I mentioned a second ago, but it's not just a stock market, even inside of a company. So for instance, like IBM as an example, right? IBM is a company, Hyperledger is a service, but within Hyperledger, you have all these different suite of products. So in the future, even the products are going to be tokenized and coming onto the Stellar blockchain. We mentioned quantum voting earlier. Here's the big thing, guys. Stellar is the only blockchain in the entire world that can actually have a system where you wrap, meaning you bring in every other asset on every other blockchain and those blockchains themselves into Stellar. So if people have been hearing the term we're forking all the other crypto into this new crypto, that forking is literally the wrapping of those assets, the wrapping of those blockchains, and making them compliant and compatible with the Stellar network. And that's being done through something called Sorabon, if you want to go and research that.
Is that you're talking now wrapping Bitcoin, wrapping
Yes.
Ethereum, and all those
Yes.
coins that are not compliant to that ISO 20022?
Correct. So the native coin
You already
will
have
not
XRP, right?
Yep.
Emily,
Well,
we already have XRP
wrapped.
on.
We have wrapped XRP, wrapped Algo, wrapped XTC, wrapped Bitcoin, wrapped Ethereum, wrapped. I think we might have wrapped Tether as well. I got to go double check on that one.
Yeah.
We have wrapped so many of everything already on the Stellar blockchain. That's how you
And no
bring
other blockchain can do
volume
that.
over. Exactly. So we're talking about
Right.
trillions of dollars of volume in all those other blockchains with those, those representative assets. When you wrap it, you move the volume over, not the functionality,
Right.
just the money behind it. And that's how you flush.
And also the stock market, okay, we expect it to collapse, right? There's nothing built out there aside from on Stellar that can accommodate the money from the market, because you have indexes all over the world. You have companies all over the world. The index exchanges has every country in it on the index exchanges, and it'll be for various purposes. But if you crash it today, where would you put the money?
Yeah,
There's only
it's
one
not like
place.
it disappears in the thin air.
That's it. That's how you know that it's going to be accommodating all the other monies, because there is no place to go anywhere else. You can't move it to Bitcoin's ledger. You can't move it to any one of them. None of them. This is the only one that has it already built into it, and the commodities too. Countries that don't have gold will be backing their currencies with whatever commodities they have. So those are tokenized as well, and they're on Stellar. So, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out the whole infrastructure moving forward is on Stellar. There's no other place.
What it surprises me is that come on, we've been doing this beta testing on the Stellar blockchain network for what, a year and a half or so. And yet there's so little information, or at least the financial business is not backing you guys are, or just the Stellar initiatives, or just all the projects that are being uploaded and being tested. I mean, if one takes a look at just what the DeFi, which is the decentralized finance job market, or the whole market is, it has not gone up, 62% or 46%. It has gone 100 times in the last 5 years, and that's the prognosis. The 5 years of the the compound the compound rate growth rate is expected to go 1,000%, 2,000%. So now we're not looking about a 200 billion. We're looking at having $6 trillion. So when
why is that?
Exactly, but this is what I
that's all that'll be left. Decentralized finance will be the only thing left.
Yes.
That's it.
Correct, Nick. But it's amazing how you don't see really this going around the media, alternative medias, any medias, articles. It's amazing. And it's right there. It's right there.
Because they'd have to actually do some work and actually do some research. That's why.
And this is the reason why so many people have not really gone dove into this. Earlier Jason mentioned that the reason why he hasn't studied it is because it's a whole different rabbit hole. Yes, you're right, Jason. So for people who don't know, I started my journey with Q on day one, post one, right? So back in October, November of 2017, whenever that was. And then I met Jason a couple months after that. And he and I have been, basically friends and working together, decoding together since 2018. So so we both fully understand the whole concept of the Q decoding and the military side of it, and how it branches into other tons of bubbles. And Jason's been, really spearheading that front. But the reason why I focus on Stellar is because when I started learning through Whiplash 347 about QFS and Stellar and how it actually fits into the Q narrative, I was like, holy crap, why is nobody else talking about this? So I dropped all the other decoding and I went, head first into this one, because there is so much to learn. I couldn't get there if I didn't do this exclusively. And that's one of the big reasons why there are so many other people who don't know about it, because it takes so much time to learn this, because the information, while it is public, it is very hard to find. And then you have to go and decode through all the psyops, all the layers of psyops, to actually uncover this information. And this has taken place over a year and a half, almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
So it's not learn overnight.
Yeah, and the information flow right now is flowing, and you cannot even keep up. So that's why you also need a team, or you need extra eyes and extra ears to be up and about. I mean, you have to keep up with this. And,
Absolutely.
I don't know how you guys do it. I really don't.
And also, just to let you know that President Trump always leaves clues. Always does. Remember, it's mathematically impossible. Yeah. So that's why I was over here laughing, because the 3 EOs on the bottom, 13818, 13848, 13959. If you add all those together, you come up with 41615. You add all those up individually to 17.
That's awesome.
That's how they do it. They do this just to have us check it. It's like anytime they throw numbers at you, they're like, boom. It's like, how do you double check? It's like,
it's a great way to do it.
Yeah. I call Jason and I say, hey, calculator, what's the number?
I always laugh because I see EO. I'm like, oh, God, here we go again. This is great.
It is.
I have to find little clues to do this.
Guys, Nick mentioned this earlier. That's where all the EO assets that are being confiscated from the Black Hats are flushing in. It's all coming into Stellar. Nick mentioned earlier, Index.exchange. There are tons of Index.exchange domains all over the Stellar blockchain. And when you look at it, you'll see, this company has seized their assets. This company, their CEO has stepped down, and the list goes on and on and on. It's absolutely insane right now. And on top of that, I think everybody knows about the whole Russia situation and how they are basically routing out all the Khazarians in New Khazaria, aka Ukraine. Jason, Nick, and I had done a great show about that yesterday. But the reason why Russia and all her allies are able to escape and circumvent all the sanctions is because they literally have already tokenized all their debt, and their entire payment structure is already built into Stellar. And the reason why we know that is because we have a contact in the Russian military, and they told us this back in June of last year, before all this stuff happened, right? Before all the sanctions happened, they said, this is what we're about to do. watch for it in the next couple months.
And they were the first one to back their currency with gold.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
And
exactly.
and also once again, when did Russia go into Ukraine?
A year ago.
February
A couple
20,
years ago.
February 24th, 2022. February, the F is a 6, right? So that's a 6. 2 plus 4 is 6. 2022 is a 6. See how everything, they're playing it right off them because of what they did to Trump and them about that stock dive Rothschilds did, the 666 point stock dive. So you got the 66.6%, all that. Then you have that 666. It's like we're taking all of our numbers back too.
Yeah.
They
That's
try
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All I can say, Jason, is I cannot follow that. But all I know is that, for example, last week when Putin gave his address to the nation, oh my gosh, it was brilliant. Can you tell me? I mean, it was Nestara in between everything. It's like, oh my gosh, and people are not catching this. I thought it was brilliant. I mean, it was a giveaway. It was brilliant. Anyways,
100%. Yeah.
Move on.
So next slide. This is more high level, guys. In the article it says Ripple's XRP and Stellar Lumens are the only crypto that is part of the ISO 20022 blockchains that can work with the CBDCs. Yeah. But more importantly, on the right hand side, this article, guys, is from, I believe it was like November 2022. So it's already outdated a little bit. But some metrics just for you to have in the back of your mind. It said that XLM was already being used in 300 plus banks all over the world in 45 countries. And then if you look at the other red bullet points on here, March 20, I mentioned earlier, SWIFT is coming in, but it's also the adoption for ISO 20022 deadline for European central banks, EBA clearing, and the interoperability for Fedwire. Fedwire being the Federal Reserve banks, their full integration isn't until 2025, but for them to be considered interoperable in alignment with ISO 20022 means that their messaging system has to be has to flow. And so that's how all the banks are going to start to work together. Now, June 19 rather, is the Bank of England and CHAPS coming in. So that's also really massive because we were always told that the Bank of England and the Federal Reserve would be the last ones. And literally you're seeing this play out. June 19, Bank of England, and then sometime around October or November is the US Federal Reserve. And that's literally the last piece of puzzle. Once
because
this
they're
happens,
the biggest.
guys,
That's why.
It'll be on October 20th,
2023. They're not just the biggest, but they're also the most evil. They're the ones controlling everything at the same time too.
Right, but it's very difficult to take down a Bank of England and Federal Reserve. They're very complex. So they need more time with them. And then eventually they'll be gone too. So.
Yeah. And so literally by the end of this year, before the end of this year, every single bank, which we know as of last October have already signed compliance to be in this program. But by the end of this year, they'll all have flushed fully into the Stellar Matrix. And then the first bullet point up there, confirmation that Bitcoin and Ethereum do not meet the ISO standards, and therefore they will not, like the native token will not be able to bridge on. It'll only be the wrapped asset that comes into Stellar. XRP quickly, just as a confirmation. This is really key, guys, because I find it almost comical. It's very interesting to me that the entire XRP community for years and years have been saying that, we are the world reserve currency. How come it took me over here in Stellar to actually just debunk that narrative? How did I debunk it? I actually used XRP Ripple's information themselves, ODL, on-demand liquidity. That means XRP is the liquidity token. It is not the stablecoin. It is not the world reserve currency. And they kind of glossed over it. And suddenly now all of them are like, oh yeah, of course it's a liquidity token. Guys, you didn't know that. You didn't even know what that meant. ODL, the only reason why I knew about that is because over in Stellar, we have tons of liquidity tokens. So when I saw that word, I was like, Eureka. Everyone has actually been misdecoding XRP for years now. So
Talk
that's
a
why
lot about liquidity, right?
Yeah, right. And then, again, future call, we'll talk about the collateralization of XRP and some of my theories on what's going to happen with XRP and the reason why you have to have a buyback in it. So the last couple slides are going to be more about, moving forward, what does it look like in terms of QFS and Jacera? So back in December of last year, the UN actually did a big beta test with Stellar. And what they did is they created all these digital wallets to actually move US dollars around in digital form called the USDC coin. And they sent it to hundreds of thousands of people in Ukraine. And it was done instantly on their own smartphone. So what that told me was, yeah, the public narrative might have been, oh my gosh, Stellar must be black hat because they're working with the UN. No, guys, because remember, the UN has already been taken over by the white hats. This was literally the beta test for future UBIs. Okay. And then after that, what happened? Just a couple weeks ago, I believe it was like February 13 or something. So a couple days before that, Stellar actually joined the CFTC, right? So Commodities Future Trading Commission. But within the CFTC, there's a subcommittee called the GMAC, the Global Market Advisory Committee. And so Stellar became the first blockchain to join this committee. And this committee literally is part of the advisory council that creates the regulation for, well, in this case, for crypto in the future. And so their very first presentation to the CFTC after joining it was about something called Stellar Aid Assist. And here's a picture of Danelle Dixon, who's the CEO of the Stellar Development Foundation. But they're talking about how millions of people anywhere in the world, but including the unbanked meaning people who do not have an actual bank account, can get into Stellar, and within 2.5 minutes of execution time, they can collect their money, create an account, and cash out if they want to all the money that's being flushed in rather through the Stellar Aid Assist. Guys, that is literally what the UBI is. And I've been saying this since 2021, but now we're seeing the technical version of how it's actually going to come to be. So how does this actually happen? In terms of technology, 2 things that you need to learn about. In the future, you can do more of a deep dive onto it. But there's something called Stellar SEP, which is their protocols, SEP24 and claimable balance. And so SEP24 means you have on and off ramps into the Stellar ecosystem with, as an example, cash, right? Like how does cash on ramp into Stellar? Through something called an anchor. And so SEP24 is how you allow people to deposit and withdraw money in and out of the Stellar matrix. So why is this really important? Because when I started researching the claimable balances, most of us know this as freebies that are being sent, kind of like gifts from the Stellar matrix. But I actually pulled up this, in the picture, you're seeing a screenshot of basically information that one of the VPs of Stellar wrote about. His name is Justin Rice. And in it, he actually narrates that the original intention of claimable balance means that you can create, well, in this case, it would be, governments and banks can create a Stellar wallet for anybody in the world, and they don't have to claim it until they're ready to claim it. So let's say Jason doesn't know about Stellar in this portion of the QFS, so maybe he's not ready to actually go into Stellar yet. Maybe he wants to wait and do some more research onto that. No big deal. So what happens is when Jacera actually happens, right, and they flush the money in and they're ready to start paying UBIs out to people, the banks can go ahead because they have your bank account. They can, create that mirror account and move the money in, and that money will be sitting there waiting for you. Now, what happens if you're unbanked? Well, that's not a problem either, because with that situation, you have people with physical assets. And as we all know, all physical assets have already been tokenized onto Stellar. So all they have to do is create the physical asset into the digital version of it, and then they drop that into your Stellar wallet. And then when you're ready to go and actually, join the Stellar ecosystem through a claimable balance, that will actually start your account. So this is brilliant because this is literally the only way you can get 8 billion people, minus clones, drones, lizards, etc., to come onto the Stellar ecosystem without you having to really go and train the 8 billion minus XYZ, right? That's massive.
Yeah, and even in some of the other QFS diagrams and descriptions, they show actual examples of somebody who has money sending it over to somebody else who doesn't have a wallet at all, and on the other end they create a wallet for them so that they can take the money. So it's many of the different descriptions of the QFS.
So they're making it the KISS method, right? Keep it simple
That's right.
for everybody.
That's right.
So they can access and not have a headache, not have to.
Yeah.
Perfect. No, it's beautiful.
100%. And that's the reason why, in the past, all those RV gurus were saying, oh, well, you're going to have a quantum trust. Guys, that's literally what blockchain is. Blockchain is your quantum trust. Over here in the blockchain ecosystem, it's called a trust line. That's where the word trust is coming from. So every asset has its own trust line. That's why Stellar is the quantum trust for the whole world for UBI, and then obviously daily payments in the future as well. These last couple slides are going to be more about CFTC because to tie back to, earlier slide, the UN and the IMF were the ones pushing for CFTC to have more power. And now we're actually seeing what's coming down the pipeline because this has only been in the last 2 months, guys. So January and February. I mentioned earlier that Stellar joined the CFTC as an advisor. Massive freaking deal, right? But what came out of that? A couple of days later, I think it was like 1 or 2 days later or whatever, the world's first decentralized digital commodity exchange came out, and that was in Busan City. So Busan is South Korea. And then more of a side note, but a couple of days ago, we actually just launched the Busan Bank on the Stellar ecosystem. So Whiplash and myself have been working with the various developers all over Stellar to make this happen. So again, just more confirmation that all this digitalization of commodities is a fact. It is not a conspiracy theory.
Emily,
Yep, go ahead.
quickly, people might say, why pick the CFTC? Well, what's the whole XRP lawsuit about? Is it a security, SEC, or is it a commodity? So this is where all the derivatives and everything, all the bad money, we've talked about this, $2.4 quadrillion of derivatives and stuff, should have been overseen by them, but they were corrupt. So now they're going to be the right version of it, where they can oversee everything, and you take the SEC out of the picture altogether, which is they're going to be gone. Put it that way.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah,
reason
because you're not going to have securities anymore after this.
Also, because there's a secret agreement that America and Israel have together, the SEC is a part of it. The Securities Exchange Commission and Israel has their own. So they're running bunk cryptocurrencies. They're funneling more money through them. That's why they have to go through the FTC, because they're eliminating that whole portion of because the stuff we found on them is bad. But I just want to tell you too, is that I went on Scribe just now and I typed in Stellar and CBDC, and it pulls up a bunch of documents, but there's a Stellar CBDC white paper that you could print and actually read and
I have it.
Yep. I made some posts on that.
So, and that's the great thing. I mean, I can learn it. Anybody can learn it. I mean, we got to get with the times because
it's out there. You just have to look for it.
Yep. Thanks, Jason. Yeah. So this slide is about, I mentioned global compliance, guys, because once you realize the magnitude of this, even though CFTC and SEC are from America, that's actually not an American compliance thing. This is actually a global compliance because the way that blockchain integrates together, and remember, guys, QFS was enacted in October of last year. That means every single country and every single bank that's compliant, meaning they have not yet shut down, have already signed an agreement to cooperate with one another. So we're talking about global compliance at this point. But back on February 10, the SEC announced that they're going to go after all crypto exchanges soon, right? And then that ties into what Nick was saying a second ago about how they're actually going to be the ones that get rid of all the tokens themselves, not just the exchanges, because of all the security definitions, right? And then a couple days later,
we use their own tools against them.
Yeah.
Look at organization, take out the crooks.
Yeah. So yesterday on QSI, Jason, Nick, myself, and a couple other people, Charlie Ward was on that call, Cranker, Yazka, Jeremy. We talked about art of war, right? Like, what is the art of war? But in this case, it's using the cabal's narratives, resources, plans, infrastructure, everything against themselves to destroy them. And that's what you're seeing unfold right now. So February 13, a couple of days later, the GMAT committee, within the CFTC, they started to prioritize. So now, again, just reiteration that SCF promoted the concept of UBI to GMAC and CFTC officially, and now it's in their record. So when people actually see everything come out, they'll say, aha, it's because SCF's already presented it. It's already official for the government at this point. And then a couple of days after that, they proposed more regulation. So it says regulation on risk management for major financial institutions and high net worth individuals who are responsible for significant market exposure. So again, guys, literally this is confirmation upon confirmation of the triple executive orders and the USMCA Act coming into Stellar. So just want to end on this last slide. Don't have to go into detail about it, but these are the upcoming deadlines for this year, public deadlines. So not decodes, but things that have already been publicly announced. that's coming in that's affecting the matrix. So, obviously a whole bunch of stuff on the banking side of things. And then, down here in April, Russian CBDCs began using real money from real customers to test transactions. So that, obviously they've already been doing that beforehand, but this is them saying publicly, hey guys, it's go time now because of, Putin's speech the other day. That was the big green light. On top of that, we have the big Ethereum upgrades. So without going into too much detail, Ethereum has basically been divvied up into multiple kinds of upgrades, and people who don't understand what's going on think that Ethereum is upgrading themselves. No, guys, Ethereum, over all these multiple upgrades, is actually becoming more and more Stellar compliant. So if you look at old articles, and I've got all of the stuff posted in QSI, every single Ethereum upgrade has actually become more and more in alignment with Stellar. Their transaction speeds, their compliance, their fees, their timing, everything. And so the first big one is actually coming on, well, they haven't given a date, but they said around middle of March will be something called the Ethereum Shanghai upgrade. And that's when all the wrapped staked Ethereum is actually going to be withdrawable. So this is now talking about billions of dollars of Ethereum that most likely people will be cashing out on because they start to realize that Ethereum is not stable and the price is going up and down. And with all the news coming out about Bitcoin and Ethereum crashing one day, the White Hat is essentially trying to shake people awake and say, hey, this is like your last chance to get out before things really start hitting the fan. On top of that, you also have March 20th, the Evergrande lawsuit, which anybody who has been studying Evergrande knows that that's also tied to Ethereum, Bitcoin, and Tether, and basically the whole global market for real estate, right? But then real estate ties to the banking side, ties to the wealth management side, ties to everything, the stocks.
That's hugely leveraged. It's hugely leveraged. So when it goes down, it's going to be the domino effect.
Yeah.
Bank by bank. Anybody who's involved is going to end up getting wiped out.
Yeah. And in Nick's D class from back in November of last year, he talked about how the global liability was like $2.3 quadrillion, not trillion.
Derivative exposure.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. But it is a liability, really. If they put all those on the balance sheets of the banks today and force them like they should, every bank would instantaneously be insolvent and bankrupt.
Imagine.
Yeah.
One could only
Yeah.
all at once, immediately. It would immediately happen. So that's why they have them off ledger, so that they can hide them. So.
Yeah. And then if I move into the June timeline, remember, June 19 is when Bank of England comes in, but around June or July, they haven't set the date on this yet, is the Ethereum Pathfinder upgrade. And I have so many decodes on this one as well. Pathfinder is literally them coming into Stellar. There's a lot of not just comms, but the technology upgrade behind that is confirmed to be Stellar. So why is that important? It's because remember, back when I was talking about the Hyperledger slides, let me just go back to that real quick. Hyperledger Besu was Ethereum. Hyperledger Sawtooth is smart contracts for PBFT. And then as a reminder, when you have the internet crashing to zero through Project Odin, that's when everything flushes over because those go non-existent, right? So that's the reason why it's so important to understand these deadlines are being timed with the banking system, being timed with various collapses and dominoes of collapses. And that's why on previous calls, Nick and I have been talking about, it's not just a Black Swan market, a Black Swan market crash, it's multiple Black Swans market crash, all being layered on top of one another. So it's a total crash of the system. There's no possible way to escape it. July 1st is the deadline for debit cards to issue what they call at least two card payment networks. And that includes card not present online payments. Why is this significant? Because again, when you're tying in UBI into Stellar and they're pushing in all these, stable coins into your digital wallet, you're not operating off of your phone. So that means it's an online payment. That means you don't have to have necessarily a physical credit card or a debit card with you. That's what the card not present means. So for them to do that, that means July 1st thereafter would be any day after July 1st is the possibility for UBIs to really kick in a massive scale, because that's when they're going to have at least two different channels for this. That way, no matter wherever you are in the world, you can have an off-ramp if you need to off-ramp those assets. That's what July 1st deadline means. So yeah, this year is freaking massive. I don't know how
Wow.
to explain it any more than that.
Wow. And can I just add one more thing? Because I'll
Yeah.
tell you what you posted, and if people don't believe Brazil, what happened to Brazil? They did the digital real. They actually they tested it, beta tested it. It went successful, and they said the choice of the Stellar Lumens protocol is centered on the fact that the protocol is a highly functional one that is designed for mass enterprise adoption. Hello, world. Tell me about it. Okay. So it is really exciting. And boy, I did say that 2023 was going to be bombastic. I did not realize how bombastic it was going to be for the financial system and for us. I mean, this is unbelievable. Brace for impact.
No kidding. I mean, this is the year that things finally come to fruition. So what a time to be alive.
Totally.
And if you don't pay attention and do your homework and be open-minded, you're going to get the shock of your life. You're going to get hit in the side of the head with like a sledgehammer when this all happens. So people should be open-minded and be willing to do a little research. This way they know it's coming and could be prepared properly for it.
Well, what I like about all of this is that, for those who are not prepared, at least they're being taken care of, and it's going to be simple. Once that shock, because this is all psychological. I mean, this is a massive change, psychological change of everyday living that you've been doing, all the paperwork, all the signing, all the SWIFT.
No, I'm referring to people that know it, that they think they know what's coming, but they really don't know what's coming.
Well, that's
exactly.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
The other people can be excused because they don't know. But if you know that something's coming, you're not willing to really look at what's coming, then you get what's coming to you.
I just find this funny that we had this today, right? Because how many times has 2.3 come up? You just said 2.3 quadrillion, and it's been 2.3 other, and it's 3/2/23 5/5. And then I saw that you were talking about your dates, your October, November, Federal Reserve and chips. What if it's done on October 28th, 2023? That would be the 6-year delta. Another 6.
Oh,
for the Q-Dot. It's like, why
Jason,
not?
that is brilliant. Because when I was talking to, so one of the contacts that Whiplash and I have is this guy that, well, we'll call it SPIA for now. It's a Seller Product Integrity Audit, but he works for one of the biggest banks in the whole world. And they're basically the governance unit that's going around signing all the banks, central banks, and treasuries into Stellar, right? So this guy is like the top knob of that. And when you talk about like the military comms, the comms are for March, April. But when you talk about this guy, and this guy doesn't believe in the military comms, this guy is, banker kind of guy. He believes in whatever's written. He's saying that once the Federal Reserve, so the U.S. Federal Reserve and chips comes in, it'll be smooth sailing from there on. So we're expecting around November, December timeline in through January. That's when everything, like the whole world will definitely know about this.
Also,
so what a
you said something about March, like a day during March.
Is that Protocol 22 then, right, Emily? At that time, Protocol 20?
Protocol 20, yeah, that's the quantum matrix.
Yeah.
So can you explain for a moment what Protocol 20 is all about? Just for those who are just following and they don't know what we're talking about, Protocol 20. Because right now
so right now we're in Protocol 19, you're absolutely right. And Protocol 19 a lot of it was about liquidity, which is what we're seeing that right now, right? Like we're seeing like everything flushing into the matrix. They just haven't released it to us, the people yet. They're just they're beta testing the flow and the transactions over in their own little bubble, which, by the way, Nick and I have done a lot of D classes on that as well. We've actually caught them putting the liquidity in and then hiding it from us. So we have all the screenshots and all the videos proving that. Yeah, it's insane. But Stellar Protocol 20 is what's going to be known as the quantum matrix. So this goes beyond just the financial system now, right? Because QFS is quantum financial system. But what happens after the finances have already been quantumized? It flows into everyday society. So that's what the quantum matrix is how does it get from here to there? If I go back to, where is it? Here, right? It's like, it's the smart contracts for everyday living. It's our logistics, it's our manufacturing, our agriculture, right? So even farming is going to be on Stellar, onto smart contracts and blockchain, right? Government, we mentioned that as well. So literally, like the way that you live and breathe in and the way that, security is being done and the White Hats are monitoring everything is being done by blockchain.
Yeah,
So
this is how you implement a lot of Nicera Jacera, right?
Yes.
You got new technologies coming in, they'll be tokenized. You got new transportation coming in, that'll be tokenized. New ways of farming and growing food, all of it will be tokenized because it's the easiest thing in the world. If I want to buy a farm in Nebraska, I could buy on the token. It'd take me 5 minutes instead of going there and signing papers and going through a whole transaction. Everything will be tokenized, so just the ownership of the token will go from one person to another, and the quantum computers will keep track of it. So I mean, this is part of the implementation of all of this.
And plus, it eliminates inflation too, because if you have that much money flooding the market, you're going to be printing up all this money. What's it going to do? It's going to be do just like they did in Venezuela.
Yeah, inflation is intentional, and it's intentional, and it's unnecessary. You don't need it. There's no need other than making more money for them.
And also with that protocol 20, you gotta love Tesla with this. So protocol 20, if a P is a 16 and the 20, 16 plus 20 is a 36, which is 3 plus 9. But also, if you take 16 and 20, 1 plus 6 plus 2 is 9. So it's like, guys, this is like the end. And
it is. Oh, Jason, you'll love this chart too. So get this, since I'm already on this slide right now, anyways, we've been talking about Project Odin. So this is saying that IBM Hyperledger's product or service called Caliper is the only project not using Apache. Now, I know you know all about Apache and the flushing and the crashing of systems, right? But get this, if I go back to, so keep PBFT in mind right now, right? Project Odin, crashing of the internet, flushing of Bitcoin and Ethereum over into Stellar. I wrote a decode back on February 20th, and this was that Mount Gox D class that I was referencing earlier. But there's something that was baked into the whole narrative of Mount Gox called Locky malware. Locky malware is literally this malware that was programmed all those years ago that goes into people's computers, but more specifically, all the companies around the world, and they create this this form that looks like an invoice, but it's all it's encrypted. They have to go decrypt it, but the malware is when you decrypt it, it actually steals all the Bitcoin off of your computer. And even more interesting is within this Locky malware, they have all these different file extensions, right? Like that's like hidden into your system. The nicknames for this are the extensions rather, .odin, .thor, and .zzz.
Loki's the god of evil and deception, right?
Now, what was that called? Project
Loki, L-O-K-I? Is that what it is?
L-O-C-K-Y, Locky malware.
Of course, L-O-C-K-Y, because of course, Project Odin. Then you have Thor, because that's the hammer. Thor's hammer is Operation Ular. And then you have Odin, which was Thor's daddy.
Yep.
And Trump's Thor. I mean, this
is unbelievable. I cannot believe all these.
But it's really Loki, L-O-K-I. That's what it's really representing.
Yeah, it really is.
Evil and deception.
Yep.
So I don't have these slides on this presentation for today, but maybe on a future call or something, or if you guys want to go look in my channel. But I had done a bunch of decodes on, there's something called CIA's digital hammer. So again, hammer comms, Thor comms. When you understand CIA's digital hammer, they themselves, this is a CIA project that the CIA has been posting about. I found this information on the CIA's LinkedIn website. And
is that the hammer, Emily? Is that the hammer, like Hammer and Scorecard? Those the two programs?
No, that's not, because it's two different things, but it is the same name. So obviously, Hammer Scorecard is really big too, and I have even more information on that as well. But the digital hammer is all about AI ML, right? So artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, ISO 20022 compatibility, and they tell you in their own comms that they're working with what is it? DNI, and what's the other one? I can't think of it right now. I'll have to go look at my post.
The ONI?
DNI and something else.
ONI? Office of Naval Intelligence, or?
No, let me see if I can find. Chat amongst yourselves. I'll go find my.
Well, now when you mention the CIA, it's like, people think the CIA is just in America. It's like, no, the real base for the CIA is actually, it's on the border of Switzerland and France. It's 19,500 feet underwater in Lake Geneva.
Yeah,
split.
that's right.
And it's like, guys, that's where they do. Then, and they have 2 secret entrances from there to get to CERN, because that's where Alice is. That's where they manipulate all the markets. It's like, guys, they're doing all this stuff in Switzerland. It's like
in front of our face, and we don't even know anything. Sneaky.
I know,
right?
What's
going on in the water?
Okay, I found my post. So if you're already in QSI and you want to go look for the post yourself, it was posted on December 26th. Just keyword digital hammer and you'll find it. So the CIA started revamping all their top people, like all their directors and everything. And these people were being brought in all have some kind of like blockchain or like really high big tech backgrounds. So that like they basically all their posts were talking about smart contracts on blockchain. That's a big first key right there. But then April 2022, there's a guy that was named CIA's first ever CTO. Why would CIA need a CTO unless everything is going digitized, right? May 2022, Randy Nixon, the director of digital futures of the CIA, he announced the first ever RFP for Digital Hammer on something called acq.westfields.net. And that website is called Welcome to the Ark.
Oh.
Noah's Ark. And I started researching what is Westfields. Westfields is the NRO. That's what I was looking for. The National Reconnaissance Office, one of 5 intel agencies under the DNI, right? Think Ezra Cohen Watnick, right? And then it says, FYI, NRO was transferred from Air Force into Space Force, right? So that's even more comms right there. Trying to like scan through my post right now.
literally
OPSIC, digital hammer nodes are ties into Project Odin, ties into Protocol 20 Quantum Matrix. And then it says, any person or company applying for Digital Hammer must agree to the disclaimer that all of their computers, storage, and internet networks will be monitored by the intelligence communities thereafter. So anybody can get in on it. It already is, but they're now agreeing to be monitored. All these massive companies are agreeing to it. So what is Digital Hammer, right? It's enterprise partnerships with AIML, big data, cyber, the future of work. I mentioned this on yesterday's Art of War call, but for the sake of this call, it's artificial intelligence and automation will make this shift as significant as the mechanization in prior generations of agriculture and manufacturing. That's the Protocol 20 Quantum Matrix we're talking about. Horizon scanning is a technique to detect and identify emerging developments, trends, and other signals of change throughout systemic analysis of trusted source materials. It is used by businesses, organizations, and governments to identify risks and opportunities in the emerging environment. So this is the governance layer of it. They're saying, as soon as we see anything nefarious, we've already monitored you. We already tracked you, and it's all digitized, so we know who you are on-chain and off-chain in the real world.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And this is all public. I mean, this is not that it's hidden. I mean, come on, people. I mean, I know everybody's trying to struggle. Everybody has their life. Everybody's busy. But this is what they're doing. They're just keeping us busy so we don't pay attention to all this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. How do you keep up with this, Nick? I mean, really?
I talked to Emily at 4:30 in the morning, basically. That's how I can, right? That's like our afternoon. That's our afternoon conversation.
Well, because like everybody's always messaging us during the day when they're awake, so we have to wait for them to go to sleep before we can actually have a real chat.
I know. We don't sleep anymore. I mean, I'm trying to keep up with everything, and you can't keep up with everything because it's not just about Stellar and what's going on the blockchains and the finance markets. It's just everything else. It's rescuing the republic or the country. It's taking care of what's going on with the kids. I mean, it's so much. It has been information overflow. And I think that when everything comes in and kicks in, I'm sorry, but I really want a vacation. It's like, I want a break.
You know what the nice thing is? That the average person has us to help them not have to spend all those hours. We spend all those hours. We put out the information. So if you don't take advantage of it, it's really stupid because we're spending 15 hours, 20 hours a day doing this, and you don't have to do that. You could just listen to all of us and get the information you need. So, I mean, We're
And what
making
we,
it as easy as we can.
yeah,
It's
and
true.
what we've been doing differently is because, like, guys, we know if you're already in the Q community, you've been doing a lot of research and you've been learning like the military comms and the decodes. But at some point, I think every single person in this movement has experienced this. We get frustrated because our friends and our family are like, "What are you talking about? Like, this doesn't make any sense. You're a conspiracy theorist." So what we've been doing since last year in QSI is we've been looking at the public comms. What is the mainstream media saying? What are the government documents saying? Using those as our sources and no longer the decodes and the Q posts as our sources. That way, anybody who sees the research will go, "Oh crap, this has been in front of us. Where have I been this whole time?" And that's why this is like this presentation today is the consolidation of our QFS proof. So there's way more information over there, including all those videos that we've been doing with Charlie Ward and Nick and many other people, because we want to make sure that you have more information to kind of flush out your education. And then from there, you can go and do more if you want to. But that way you have the full story behind it before you ever invest into Stellar, if you wish to, right? It's like getting in position in Stellar now is the same thing. Like Jason's actually the one that taught me about the RV currencies, the Zim bonds, the Dinars, stuff like that. And he taught me that in 2018, right? So I got it then to get prepared for the RV. But if people don't have that kind of money, because I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's like when I was wanting to pay for the physical RV currencies, most people are spending hundreds or thousands of dollars, if not more, to buy those assets. Or they're dropping thousands to get, physical gold and physical silver. But over here in Stellar Land, and Nick can definitely confirm this, you can get billions of tokens for like $1, $5, $10. So nobody's
Right,
missed
and I always say that they made it that usually it's only the rich people that get the advantage of everything. They gave people an opportunity, even with $1,
Yep.
to be able to potentially change their whole lives and their families' lives.
Yep.
And I think that's intentional. I think they did it on purpose. They're giving people a chance, if they're willing to open their eyes and their mind, an opportunity that you'll never see again in your lifetime. Okay,
Yeah.
and even with $1 or $2, you can become a millionaire essentially, and take care of your family and help other people. I mean, what other opportunity? You can't do that in the stock market. You need tons of money. You can't do it in the metals. You need tons of money. The currencies, somewhat, but you still need money. But here, you could use $1, literally.
Yeah, but Nick is not manipulated. And he's not manipulated, because that's why we're not winning. We little people who invest in the stock market, we lose all the time.
Right. But this is like getting in before a public offering. This
like we're in the House of Representatives or something, huh?
What's that?
Like we're in the House of Representatives or something, huh? We've been the best day traders ever.
I mean, this is, and once this starts going, you're not going to be paying, 1/10,000th of a penny to get in. You have to pay real money. So, getting in now prior to all this starting to happen is key. And the nice thing is that even the least wealthy people have a chance here, which is very unusual in the finance world.
So let me ask you one question. Nick, for a moment. How long do you think this opportunity is available for people to go in and create generational wealth for a fraction of a penny before this goes bang massive and people have to pay the real value?
No, I would say Emily knows that better than I, but it'll be until they flip it. And then once it's flipped, you're going to have a ton of liquidity coming in. Everything is going to rise in value, and that's it. So it's going to be prior to all the shifts. Because the only thing, Emily and I have done several calls on this. The only thing lacking now, and people misunderstand the price activity of what goes on in Stellar and some of these tokens, as they think people are manipulating them and pumping and dumping. No, it's a lack of liquidity. There's no liquidity in this system right now. How many people in the world know about this? Probably 1/10,000th of 1%. I tell them one small cap stock probably has 100 times more money in it than this whole Stellar system with all of us in it. So once money starts to come in of any significance, that's it. You're not going to have these prices anymore. They're going to go to normalized prices, and you're going to have to pay normal price. So this is your opportunity of a lifetime for everybody, not just for the rich people or the connected people, to everybody if they're just willing to open their mind and their eyes and use some discernment and do a little bit of homework.
And you're
So
absolutely
I'll give you an actual number. Right now in the stellar ecosystem, in terms of like these Jacera and these QFS assets that we've been ICOing, sorry guys, ICO stands for initial coin offering. It's the blockchain version of an IPO for a company in the stock market. We average way less than 2,000 people who have actually purchased into these assets, right? So if you divide 2,000 by supposedly the 8 billion all over the world, that's 0.6025. That's how few people know about these.
and like Nick said, those who are willing to open up their mind and expand their thinking, expand their knowledge, they're the ones that are going to benefit from this.
Yeah.
The thing is that we're going to benefit from it, but then we're also, it's not going to be service to self, it's going to be service to others. We're going to want to give back to people.
That's right.
That's the thing. There's a lot of people that, like I told the RV to and everything, like, nah, it's like, I don't even ask them again because it's like, you'd be service to self. It's almost like they already have a shutdown of it. It's like, that's fine. And when you start looking into this, because I was, when I heard about the RV, I'm like, so what? We're just going to get a bunch of campers? And they're like, I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know any of this. I'm like, I just did the research. And they're like, oh, no, you got to get into these Zim bonds and all that. So got into that and all this other stuff. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And it makes sense because everything has to be reset. And, why not let the little guys get in there and say, you know what? We're banking on you guys in tier 4B to be the humanitarians that are going to fix the world because all of us came together to work.
Yeah, that's right. Online. Well, I believe we're chosen, and I don't say that arrogantly. I say we're chosen because God knows our heart and knows that we're going to go and take that money and redistribute it out to help people.
Yep.
That's it. Not because we're special or we're so smart or anything, because we're going to be willing to help other people. And the only way you can do that is if you're open-minded enough to believe. People just can't believe, like I don't know why. Let me tell you something about the Zim bonds, okay?
Yeah.
The Zim bonds are bearer bonds, and they're not the only ones. There's in the bond market, there's German bearer bonds, and meaning that if you hold one, you could go into, let's say, a bank, and they'll pay you whatever the amount is on the bond. Now, they said that they retired this. And when you retire a currency, you have to make a 30-day notification to everybody to turn it in. Okay. And then after that, it becomes worthless. But this was never a currency. This was a bond. It was a government obligation. You can't turn in a government obligation and say it's not worthless. Okay. It's like turning in it's like saying a treasury is worthless. It's a bond. It's not money. They tricked people and made them believe it was money. Okay, and then they made everybody turn them in, but there's still a government obligation of Zimbabwe. And you know how you know that is because after they turned it in, they were paying $5 per person for each of their bills. If it's worthless, why are you buying after they've all been turned in and you say it's worthless? Why are you paying $5 a bill for? Yeah. What purpose? Do you want to just give money away? It's all deception, and they made people think that it was money, currency that they were retiring. They still owe the obligation. You can't go into the next phase unless you satisfy your obligations. That's why these have to be redeemed and paid for.
And I learned that the bear bonds, the Zim bonds, those numbers that they have on it, it's like, that's why I tell people, like, do not show anybody those numbers.
That's right.
What that is that those numbers, that's a plot of land in Zimbabwe. You own the mineral rights to that plot of land. So these people are sitting here saying, when people are like, oh yeah, send in your Zim bonds, and I'm like, no, you don't say yourself. You don't show anybody anything. You keep them locked up. You have the.
That's right.
I'm like, what is this going on? But people, they don't do their homework. They don't look at this, and people are like, well, they told me if I buy all this, then we could get in a big group. It's like, okay, no, don't buy that shit, because if somebody gets a $50 trillion Zim bond, right, and then you've got 5 quadrillion in Zim bonds, so is that an equal? Because this guy just bought 150, and and lucky enough, I mean, I got in early with the 50s when they were what, $15.
That's
good. It was $20, and then you save 25%. And then you look at the 100 trillion, they were 100. I'm like, so let me get this straight.
So that's what I did. I bought 50s instead of
Not
100.
100. I'm like,
Yeah, I did the same
buy
thing.
100 trillion. If you walk with a bunch of 100 trillions, they'll be like, this guy's dumber than a box of rocks.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
Economics mind. I'm like,
Because they were saying initially that only the 100 trillion. That's not true. Any of the bills are going to be redeemable. Redeemable. So, people thought, oh, only the 100 trillions. That's not true. They're not negating out the 50s and the 20s and the 10s. So any of them will be negotiable. But yeah, I did the same thing. I did the same thing you did.
It's great. It's like, yes. I'm like, man, I didn't know anything about it. They told me about it. I'm like, what is this? No, he's in bonds. I'm like, okay.
And I've seen paperwork from the government. I think I have it. I should send it to you. I'm like, that shows that they signed an agreement for this. And it says it in there. It says this, we agreed to this and that and the other. I'm going to dig it up and send it to you because it shows right there that they had an agreement with Trump. And when you think about it, what they're doing is also we're repatriating what was stolen from them. So and they get compensating us, our people, for doing that. So everybody wins. They get all their money back that we got it for them. We're bringing it back to them. And then they're allowing us to participate as well, those that supported the cause and follow the movement. So, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, if we kind of tie this back to a conversation that we're having, right before this call started, it was about frequency, right? And your intention. Because the quantum consciousness knows what your energy frequency is. It can read your mind, your thoughts. And that ties into the whole discussion around Pleiadians and stuff like that, which, maybe another
time.
Yeah. But when you think about it, it's like, why are certain people getting chosen? It's because we chose to be a part of this, right? We took these steps to do the research and to follow the plan and to stay faithful and loyal to the cause and not fall out, which is more important.
100%.
But why? Why is it though? Because I've been saying this on a couple other calls, but I think it's true. And I want to get, Susanna, you and Jason's take. I think Nick's already heard me say this. Guys, think about the white hats, right? We have, for the most part, like most of the Q patriots have been saying the white hats being a separate entity. It's, it's this general or that admiral or this president or whatever it is. And it's somebody else. It's not us. But at some point, those people are going to retire. They're going to go and live their lives and be like, hey, guys, that was my part of the plan. It's up to you now to take up the helm. Who's that going to be? Right. And like when we look at people like Elon Musk or Crown Prince bin Salman, and they just have oodles of money. They can do whatever they want to with it. And that's when we say, oh, well, obviously they can go and, build rocket ships and go to the moon and Mars and settle whatever, planet out there. It's easy for them to do it because they have the kind of money. Well, guys, we're about to have that kind of money. So what are we going to do with that kind of wealth? Why were we chosen? Well, I think, and, Jason, Nick, and I talked about this on yesterday's Art of War call, but it's like, we're a bunch of random autists all over the world. We were part of the group that was downtrodden, that was mistreated by society for, society's lack of integrity, the 3D stinking thinking. And so we're part of the class of empaths who've done the work. So what happens when up is down and left is right? You put the empaths at the top of the world. That's how you get humanitarians. That's how you change the world, especially with this crazy wealth coming in.
Totally.
Yeah, it makes sense.
No, it does make sense. And I'll tell you what, there's so much work to do. I mean, the thing is that what is happening to me, at least personally, is that not only have I invested a little bit on this, but it's just sometimes to ponder and you say, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? The responsibility behind, because this is going to be a new world. And what are we going to do in that world? And so you start, you have to start, I start writing my notes and going like, what I would like to do, because there is a humanitarian project there. Or what is it that I'm going to be productive and best serve to those that I want to, or what is it exactly that I want to do on earth? Because the sky's the limits. Suddenly, I mean, we can do whatever we want to.
I don't think there'll be any lack of humanitarian projects to do. And there'll be plenty of people that want to help us. We can't do it all ourselves. We're going to have other people that are going to come alongside of us and help us.
Yeah.
But when you talk about choosing them, like we've had this conversation. I always say to you, why is it that, how do you explain somebody like my family, and I'm sure all your family, they're professionals. They're not stupid. They're smart people. usually they're open-minded. They'll listen from time, and have a. But on this one thing, they will not listen. They will not look at anything. They will not hear of anything. Why is it that normally that's not the case, but just for this, that they're doing this? It can't be anything other than they weren't meant to be part of this part of it anyway. Later, I'm sure they will, but it has to be that. I have no other explanation for it.
I don't know what it is about money.
They chose themselves out, right? It's that frequency.
Yeah.
Because this option was given to everybody, just like the whole Q thing, just like, that's military intelligence, right? Signals intelligence as well. But everybody in the whole world can see all the signals, but who actually picks up on the Qs?
Right.
How many people?
This is where they throw us conspiracy theorists a real big bone and say, hey guys, here you go. See, if you'd have just listened to us, you could have been doing this, but we're gonna help you out too. Because that's the kind of people we are. Then they can't say like Trump or us are assholes, because like, look, we could have went off and did whatever we wanted to do, but we're going to help everyone else too. So, maybe it'll teach them a lesson that maybe they should use more discernment. Maybe they should look into things and, not use the Occam's razor and all that, and just.
Yeah, and think about who they supported, who they voted for.
Yeah.
The type of people you're dealing with, satanic, evil. How do you live with that? That you put somebody in office that eats kids and drinks blood and all the. I mean, they're gonna need a lot of help from us to be able to cope with this, because it's gonna really be a big blow to them mentally. It's gonna be huge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's
so
coming.
We have to be understanding and forget about. Yeah, I told you so. So we're just gonna have to work together and move forward.
Yeah, we'll be holding hands. A lot of people will be needing to hold hands and cry shoulders and everything else. But listen, how about if we call this a good night? I think that there is quite a lot of evidence that there is the greatest transfer of wealth is happening. It's just, you just have to look for it. And this is your opportunity for everybody that is listening to us. I've also had a few videos with Nick where we sort of baby step all of this process and talk about the stellar, and we talk about the wallets. So I hope that we do this again. It's been
living examples. Jason, me, and Emily are living examples of you can go out there and get so much information and prove whatever you want to prove.
Yep.
So if we can do it, anybody else can do it.
And I took notes too. So that's the thing. And because you have to be willing to learn.
That's right.
If somebody's willing to teach you, be willing to learn, because you never get, because remember, schools and all that, they taught us the wrong way. At least we know the ones that are teaching us now. If you trust them, if you know them, then if it resonates with you. But then if it doesn't, you could actually go on your own and look. But I know Emily won't steer me wrong. So
you got to put some effort in too. You can't just have it all handed to you on a silver platter. You're not going to. You have to really want to know and dig to find out the truth. And that's all of us. I think we're all the same type of mentality. Once we hook onto something, you got to keep going and digging and digging and digging. But that's part of it. You got to want to.
Jason and I have known each other for a long time, and I trust him implicitly with everything. But at the end of the day, it's not about if you trust me, because whatever billion people in the world don't know who I am, they're not going to trust me. But that's why I'm using public information, because even if you don't trust me, you can go and verify, fact check everything that comes out of my mouth and see what you think for yourself. And that's the point of this.
I never said to trust me. I said trust the information. We show the information. We show you where to get it. We read it. Everything's highlighted. If you don't believe it, then you can read it.
Right.
If we're full of shit, it's like, well, there you go.
Yeah, there's nothing more. There's nothing that's going to prove anything better than that. They can see it. It's not your opinion. It's not your, decode. It's there. It's right there.
And even if you're not following the Q drops or Emily or anything, but you want to dig in and what's happening into these companies, all you have to do is go back to their annual yearly report, their fiscal report, and you can tell some companies, if you find them on the stellar, you can find there all the shuffling, whether they're going to survive, not survive, who's coming, who's not coming. It's all a presentation on the board of directors also. So there you can find the information in many, many ways. And what I'm going to do is put all the information from the stellar community down on the description. Jason, I guess I'll put whatever I have from you also in the description. And I look forward to for everybody to, I guess, come back again and discuss this, because there's a lot more. And I think
happy to do it.
Definitely. And I think this last quarter, yearly quarter, the fourth quarter, I think is going to be the one that a lot of revelations coming, right? September, October, November.
Yep.
Dang.
And all they have to do is if they just look at all the CEO resignations right there. When has that ever happened?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's like they're taking everybody down. It's like, you guys like pedophilia? Then you guys can stay on that side of the fence. But
These
hey,
guys never resign. They never resign. They make tons of money. There's no way that they said, "Yeah, I'm going to go do some humanitarian work, so I'm not going to earn $1 billion anymore." Yeah,
yeah, just like Susan
okay,
Wojcicki from YouTube. I'm gonna spend some. I'm gonna spend some time with my family.
yeah.
Lying,
Take care of my kids now. I'm going to go take care of them.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right.
it's a
Well,
joke.
I'm going to call this a good night, and let me wrap it up.